Let's see.
Well, it might be a project where they hired before very well. I don't know. Oh, model. Sorry. What can I say?
Okay.
So is this fine? I mean, what was there? Smartfi, open food chain. Yeah, it looks good.
Nee, in the description.
I don't have a description.
Oh, okay, no.
Actually, I have a wrong description. Okay, I will edit that one. What? You are online?
Yep.
Hey. How's the audio and stuff?
Yeah, good.
Everything is very loud?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Can they hear us?
Yes.
I think we're live. Guys?
Yes. We are live.
How will I hear Kaden? Or will we see him on TV? Will we hear Kaden on TV?
Okay, CM answers do not ask the ATEX versus AM pool question, so don't ask that.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome everybody. It's been Blockbar is live! Exciting. It's been like almost a year, I guess, that we had our last physical meetup. So I'm very happy that we can have it again. Actually, we are surprised that we have the last few weeks we have a lot of Komodo activity in the region, and that is why we decided to do a nice Komodo special today. So I'm very proud to have a lot of team members here on board, and we also have some very nice subjects to talk about, because a lot is happening in the Komodo ecosystem. There's quite a few big projects that are now being built and going live, etc. And it's really nice to inform you all about it, and that you can all feel the same vibe as we do. So we'll start off with Audo, and Audo Kovic is the marketing manager of Komodo, and a longtime friend, of course, and a Blockbar friend as well. So he will introduce the Komodo team, and from that part we go onwards with a story about open food chain, a story about Smartfi, and the chance actually to ask a lot of questions to team members. Okay, Audo, I give the stage to you.
Thanks, Bud. And yeah, so thanks for organizing this meetup, for having Komodo be part of this, and we happen to have quite a few Komodo members in Netherlands at the moment. So it's me, the Auto, the CMO, and we also have Allright from the dev team, and Sipi, as well as Artacus, community manager. And do you guys want to introduce yourself in a short minute?
Yeah, so me, good. I'm all right. Hacker handle. I am like a Komodo coordinator. I write mostly consensus code and test the consensus code and codes that agree. Basically, like each blockchain rules and stuff like that. Other than that, I just do general security and networking, computer networking, not networking like this. And yeah, thank you.
Thanks. And what about Sipi? What do you do?
Yeah, I'm Jimmy, and I mostly run servers like electric servers, market maker nodes, and notary nodes, and yeah, DevOps actually. So yeah, write bug reports and hope that devs will fix it, and yeah, testing a lot of atomic like stuff like CRP or the desktop version. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, CP.
So if you use atomic text, then you might be trading in Sipi.
Yeah, I like it.
All right, and finally we have Artacus, our new community manager.
Hi everybody, my name is Arthur Krish, I'm a community manager, and my job is literally to activate the community and narrow out the gap between the Komodo team and the community itself, kind of bonding and working together as one. Yes, thank you.
And then,
Yeah,
we have our CTO, Karan Stargaman, joining through video soon. I will hand it off to Artacus to interview CA, but before we go there, I want to take a few moments to talk about like my take on the internet and crypto and what we think is coming to be a metaverse and why that matters. So I see internet like as a window to you can look at and find new things. So you might be otherwise tied to your local area and culture and everything, but through the connection of the internet, we are becoming this global network of people, and this helped me personally also when I was younger in the university to find new thoughts, ideas, and people, and just absorb the information and the knowledge, and then that helped me on my personal journey and growth, and to make me think of what I want to do in my life. So that is like the value of having an information network where that connects people. And then later on, then Bitcoin came into the picture, and Bitcoin did something similar, so it kind of brought in value and money to the internet. So I view that as a door. So if internet was a window I could look through, then Bitcoin was a door I could walk through and find work, do something more practical. And for me it happened when I joined the online community known as Komodo today, and I did something very simple, and then I received a bounty from JL77, the Komodo founder, and then that set me on this journey where I'm working with Komodo. So with that, like the blockchain space provides anyone the means to learn, build your skills, and even build a career and just work online. So that is the great value of it. So what we are saying is kind of launch a renaissance. So we are talking about in Komodo there's a blockchain renaissance going on. So and it's also like a return to the original values of decentralization and peer-to-peer technology and open source technology. And this is the like in crypto there's diverse communities and people, like a lot of scientists and unique people, unique perspectives coming together and trying to vision like the future world. So that in mind, in Komodo we have wanted to try to reinforce this idea and organize a conference in November. We are calling it Blockbar, so Blockchain Renaissance. It's going to be a global distributed event. It's going to be happening on November 8th and 9th. We will have several on-site events, one happening in Miami and another one here in The Hague, most likely here in this very building, in the Hague Tech.
Yeah.
We are also going to have an online stream and hopefully many online meetups happening and live meetups happening at the same time. So we're going to have more information about that event coming up shortly as we finish the website. So, but I want to give a little shout out to what we're working on. So that's all I wanted to say. So now I'm going to hand it off to Articus to talk with CA or CTO, and we will see what our development team is up to.
Thank you all. Just want to say thank you again for everyone joining this kind of spontaneous event. Today, hopefully, we'll see Caden popping on the screen, and I have a couple of questions for him. I think everybody's interested to hear what he has to say.
Is that
Hier?
right?
Nou. So a short introduction about CA333. Mr. Caden is a Komodo CTO and a security whiz trying to better the world with blockchain since 2011.
Even nadenken.
Yes.
Now we can't hear him. If I put this on.
Hey! I can hear you very, very silently. We're trying to fix some of the technical stuff here. That's how it goes. That's how it goes. It's really nice to see you here with us in the Hague through a stream, but I think it's important to have you here.
Is al uitgezet.
Oh, uitgezet.
Nee, precies. Even kijken. Dus dan is het die mic.
Nee, jij moet...
I do hear. Am I muted for you?
Ja. Je moet hem even aanzetten.
Aan.
Ja, aan.
Aan. Toestaan.
Do you hear me now?
Okay.
Well, we don't hear you, so give us another minute.
I've increased the volume. Can you try again, please?
Could you try saying something, Caden? Nope. Nothing.
Even kijken. Deze, hier komt het uit. Dan moet de televisie harder. Where is the remote for the TV?
I don't
Kun je daar volume omhoog?
100%.
100. Sound automatic. Can you ask, what is his name, please?
Caden.
Can you ask Caden to again say test?
Nope. Nope. It's not coming through.
It's basically the closing button, put below it, or we can get the sound.
It's coming out of my laptop. It's going into the HDMI. TV is on 100%. It should be working.
No. Also not.
So your microphone.
My microphone is
The
on.
microphone is working, we only don't get the sound on the TV.
There's really low volume coming from him. I'm on 100% here. Oh, here, deze. Yeah, also 100%.
Yeah, it's coming here through.
So why isn't that one coming through? I'm gonna reload the page. Let's see.
You want the microphone for us?
Hey,
Even kijken, niet kijken.
another Komodo team member, Chris, Visa Master.
Okay. Yeah, join now.
Yes, cheers.
Okay.
No, I'm afraid not.
There's a stream here. It's just a VR.
No,
Yeah.
but I can.
No one here.
His voice can be heard over this laptop's speakers at a very low volume, although it's on maximum. HDMI is connected, so the TV should be blasting now, but it's not. The TV is on 100%.
And if you pump up the volume here?
I did. Everything is on maximum.
You need to use some sound drivers to TV, I think.
Yeah, okay, so let me try that. You're right, thank you.
That's what happens in the blockchain, you know? You have
This
to
one,
Yeah.
find the wrong block and go back and do it again. Thanks for waiting though.
one. Is that the LP 55? Yes, no?
Put that Komodo
That's,
still.
maybe this one then. Yeah.
And the intentions of trying new stuff. But
Test, guys, can you hear me?
It's coming from here, but it's for us it's enough.
I think so too. Can we work with that? I think we can.
Can we hear Artikus on the stream?
Can you hear us?
Test, I can hear you well, guys.
Okay.
Awesome! Woo! We're back.
Over the laptop, but we're there. I'm going to.
Yeah, and we hear you quite clear. So, Caden, I already presented you, so I have a couple of questions that people are very, very interested to hear. And the first one is, could you speak about the security practices in blockchain spaces? What are the practices you see are done right, and is there something we are missing out?
Well, that's like quite like an abstract question, if I may say that, right? So, I think speaking practically, right, there is no security, specifically in the blockchain space, right? Let alone cybersec in general, IT industry, but in blockchain, I'd say like the security practices, the security awareness, right? The user behavior itself is like super bad, right? I mean, we have people using the name of their pet and 123 as a password, right? We have others using like words like out of dictionaries, right? As their like seed, and then talking about a single word, right? As their cryptographic wallet seed. So I believe like user education is still like the big term, right? When we speak about like security practices, you know, how things going. I mean, we as Komodo, our dev team, right? I mean, we're kind of like sensibilized in this area. We are afraid, we are paranoid. We fear like the internet. We fear all these like attack vectors because we know them, right? I believe once an average Joe, like a random user, right, a standard user, like our grandma, is aware of the risks and this attack surface, I think then the practices would become like better, right? Like from the wider population, from the wider user base, they would start like paying attention to this, they would start caring about it. But as to what I can see now, right, about like, just refer like to the damage we've seen like in 2020, just like in the DeFi space, right? We have like major DeFi protocols launching without prior pen testing, without proper like independent reviews. People just like try to get this like a green light certificates from some unknown like security firm, you know what I mean? And people just like throw like billions into these like platforms, right? The so-called like DeFi platforms. And I mean, that's like a huge threat to the entire ecosystem, to the industry, to the user base, right? People losing money, a lot of money, like on a wider scale. And then like we also have like these like single like user infiltrations where like specific like parties, you know, like single humans make huge loss by getting infiltrated, hacked, right? They get scanned and so on. So I'd say like just like in general, this topic like security in the blockchain space in our industry, I think it's like probably like super bad, right? I mean, look at people like having like 2FA on the same phone. They probably watch movies, listen to music, etc. Right? So everything you run like in the multimedia environment is just like super unsafe, right? A lot of people don't know about this. That it means you can get automatically hacked, right? So again, blockchain blockchain space and security, I think there are like two things that don't like fit quite well together as of today, right? Like just like on the way people use it, the way like people integrate things, the way people implement things, the way users behave. But it's something that certainly will come, right, with this so-called mainstream adoption, with having like, you know, regulatory frameworks being put up, right? So this means at a point even like the authorities, the regulations could require certain security standards, certifications, etc. But until then, and since we're like pretty much in this wild west, I'd say in a very simple term, like we're just like all fucked, right? Like this tech is just like super push set up, and yeah, it's just like we're not like super good, you know, all these blockchain projects. We're not super good, and that's why we haven't been hacked yet. It's the hackers haven't like really targeted us yet, right? Like the real hackers, right? They probably still earn more with specific like, you know, like attacks, etc., like attacks as a service and so on. But once they like really get like hot in this industry, in this field, that's where we'll have probably like real problems.
Absolutely.
And yeah, more education should enhance everything.
Yeah, that is one of the things that we're actually taking a step now towards our Komodo community through Hangouts and such. We see that there's a huge lack of information about the simple security things that you can do for yourself, knowing what is a hot and cold wallet, knowing what is a paper wallet, how you can secure your funds. Those things we see lacking in the community itself, because especially now when the blockchain and crypto worlds are kind of like pushing into the front run of the mass media, a lot of people are just jumping into it and think that that's how it is, you know, like normal things. You just have your thing next to your wallet, but you don't know that at the same moment somebody can sit in your pocket and literally take all of your funds. That's a very important point that you said. Education is a must at this point. So moving on, second question would be, where does Komodo stand on the scalability trilemma? Do most DeFi protocols have it wrong?
Okay, that's a good question, but I think like I'll answer this like more like from my perspective, in my opinion, if that's fine for you, right?
Sure.
Because I myself, I believe there is no such like real scalability dilemma, right? Mm-hmm. I think we're kind of like probably a step or two steps away from like a huge, like a really major like paradigm shift, like where we probably like just like gonna accept that, you know, the tech itself is not the problem. Like what I see is that networking and storage technology, right? That's where we actually have like the real bottlenecks. And at the end of the day, right? I mean, what's a blockchain? What is a blockchain? What are all these like DeFi architectures, these DeFi platforms? They are like sort of like a super inefficient, clumpy database system, right? They use like outdated database technologies, like old standard data types. And I've mentioned this like before in prior calls, that the tech that we use for blockchain technology as such was not really designed for blockchain technology, right? I mean, we need an entirely new like indexing algorithm. We need like new, more efficient like data structures. We probably even like new data types that really fit like blockchain as such, something that needs to be designed like from ground. And I mean, let's see and let's hope that maybe one of these like centralized exchange operators maybe takes just like 0.1% of their daily revenues and says, okay, we're gonna like invest into research. Maybe that comes up even like a completely new solutions, like a new computer architecture as such, something that really fits this technology, right? I mean, we see processing power is like growing rapidly, like really at exponential rate, right? So if we like further decentralize things, enhance them with new like tech stacks, you know, but on a super low level, on the physical layer, basically on layer number 0, right? Yeah. Like on the absolute basis, we could like get to a point where like, you know, there won't even be the discussion around like a scalability dilemma, what like people say, because it's really not existent, right? It's again, it's like less the tech stack. It's really like basically the physical laws that we're bound to as of now. And I think that's just like our comfort, our laziness, that no one like just like stepped up and said, okay, hey, let's like design something that fits this. And as an example, look at Tesla, right? Huge like company, their cars are interconnected with the cloud, etc. This, that. And I've read somewhere that they really store like data, and I'm talking about like significant data, like on their persistence layer for like 5 to 10 minutes. That's it. That's their requirement. They don't persist data for like years, possibly decades, like we do now, like with Bitcoin and stuff, right? So we probably have like to rethink this all, right? We have to align this to like new tech, milestones like AI technology, more solid, more efficient, like tech stacks, etc. And then I believe that there won't be like any such like scalability discussion anymore.
Yeah,
right. It's just like my 2 cents on this topic.
Thank you. It's not about recycling the code, but more about working ground up.
Yeah, basically I want to ask a question further about that. Can you hear me?
What is the question?
Can you hear me properly or not?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah. So basically about this whole scalability issue, where do you think is the real bottleneck? Is it like on the technology side, that you're not using the right technologies? I mean, there are already developments in this space, for example, nimble cut through. For example, you do not need to keep everything that you put on the blockchain forever on the blockchain in order to validate new transactions. Or is just the issue that you're basically using the blockchains? The mistake is that everybody's trying to use the blockchain as a database, instead of just anchoring the most minimalistic amount of data on the blockchain and throwing it away after it's being used, basically. So, where do you think is the real bottleneck? Is it the scalability within tech, or is it the misuse of the technology that you're trying to use the blockchain as a database?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, that's a super nice question, and hold your heads because it's going to be like a bit political, right? Like from my end concerning like this specific topic. So I believe like the real problem, while the bottlenecks is definitely like on the technology side of things, speaking about, database systems themselves, right? The storage solutions that we have right now, the bandwidth that's like really available, like for this like tech stack. I think that's still like kind of limited, but why? Yes, let's ask ourselves why that is the case. I mean, first of all, the real innovative power, the real like really hot technology, you won't find this like in Wikipedia or in like online encyclopedia about like IT, cyber technologies and stuff. You will find it like in military laboratories, in academic circles that collaborate with military, or with this kind of like tech stacks, right? So I think that's like one huge problem. The second one is who is running like all this technology? Like when I send you Bitcoins, what do I do like in the end? Okay, let's look at it like as a high level, application level basically perspective. We're using like Bitcoin, okay, that's like some software. But at the end of the day, no matter how decentralized our technology is, right, and we say it's decentralized, but look, we all have like some centralized ISP provider that we have the internet from. We all use like centralized DNS providers, some telecommunications company, which is like governmentally regulated and controlled, right? One port letter and a line can be closed, right? This is like basically the underlying fundamental infrastructure that we use like for something as innovative as like blockchain. Next point is here that a lot of this like infrastructure is outdated, even like from a hardware perspective, right? If you look like at these huge networking relays that these telecommunications providers use, many of them still like use Siemens hardware from the late 2000s. And again, this is like brings me again like to this like political thing, because we know like the biggest technology shift and the biggest technology like progress takes place shortly before wars or shortly after wars, is where it actually gets like disclosed and publicly known. And I believe this is like a similar problem here with this technology. That, I mean, one good example is China banned TLS 1.3, right? This is like something we've even like talked with All Right, who is there also today. And what does this tell us? China banned 1.3, but you can still use 1.2. It means that 1.2 is already cracked by the government, right? They are able to infiltrate the entire like encrypted like communications within like their company, right? So while bottlenecks, right, do exist like with the technical reasoning, it's often like a political, like basically a root cause, right? Just like to answer the question. I hope that makes sense for you.
Yeah, thank you. Just to summarize shortly, what do you think is the solution? Is that we need the institutions? Do we need to have like the American Department of Defense put a few billion in using their blockchain for a war to actually push this space into finding the tech that we need, the wider community? Because it sounds a little bit to me like you say that part of the solution is that the tech is in the wrong, that we basically are not institutionally associated. So maybe you need institutions, for the regulation of the blockchain and maybe for pushing certain tech into the blockchain space. It's like we're running a little bit behind the facts. That's how it sounds to me. I'm just playing advocate for the devil here, by the way. You get that?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't get the last part. The acoustic is a bit like limited, maybe.
Yeah, I asked him to come a bit closer from his
well,
Excellent.
to me it sounded a little bit like just playing the advocate of the devil. It sounded a bit like basically you need the bigger institutions. You need, like, for example, the American Department of Defense to fund with multiple billions a blockchain project to push this kind of technology. So let's say, for example, the American army would want to have a drone army that uses blockchain tech to anchor things. Then maybe we would find the tech to actually scale stuff in the more decentralized blockchain space.
Yeah, but who says that they don't already have like a hyper-efficient laser-based internet network which is able to transmit like, not giga, maybe even like terabytes per second, terabit second connections, and maybe they already have also like a new, totally like innovative like cryptographic stack. Like, don't forget, we still use like ECDSA and like basically old cryptography for Bitcoin. We just assume it's safe, right? So the security of Bitcoin is all based on the assumption that no one has like the computational resources to crack a key pair. But we don't know if that's not the case. We don't know if like military institutions, etc., maybe they have already like developed this kind of technologies and maybe they already use them, but we won't know until we know. So I think this goes already like a bit into like the cyber philosophical aspect. It's like super interesting, yes, definitely. And I believe these institutions, they are needed. They have the power because in the end, they will release this stuff. They will make it public. And don't forget, the NSA is today the biggest employer of mathematicians, of physics, and of cyber experts, right? And this should like tell us a lot.
Okay.
Thank you, Caden.
Well, thank you for the answer. I think we can keep the discussion endlessly going, but I think this is very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, it's super interesting topic. Yeah, I would love to speak with you hopefully one day about that in person.
Maybe visit here sometime, yeah.
Absolutely. So I don't want to extend this conversation way too long, but I think there's 2 points that I really want to touch, and one of them, of course, Caden, everybody wants to know, when does the 0.50 atomic DEX release is coming out?
Okay, so technically it's like pretty much done, right? I mean, even like with the current dev build, someone could already get like a grasp and feeling for what is to come. We're currently like awaiting a sign-off, a security-related sign-off. So we do plan like the rollout of the 0.5 in around 7 to 10 days from now. So we'll have like a final QA test session going probably in the coming full week. And then we'll target like the release and we'll let you guys know, of course, before.
Great news, thank you. And to close this off, I wanted to ask, could you tell us about the WebDex and when can we expect that?
Okay, so with WebDex, we basically already have like a super early internal alpha, if you want to put it like that. I mean, we're past the proof of concept and the prototyping stage. So I think like for a realistic time frame where like end users will be able like to put their hands, on this is like towards end of this year, as we've basically targeted already like early this year. So we're still like fully in alignment with this one.
Awesome. Thank you, Caden. Thank you for your answers. I hope everybody is happy about that. If you have any other questions, you should go to our Discord and grab Caden by his handle and hopefully he has time to reply that. Thank you, Caden.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
I'll invite Bart to maybe continue the program.
Yes, thank you, Yeah, so for now we are very fortunate to have Marieke in the room. And Marieke, so you're going to tell us about Open Food Chain, which is a great new project with really nice partners that is running on Komodo Tech. Marieke, is there a presentation you have to share?
I do. I have it here.
Maybe you can send the share link.
Oh, did
Yeah. And then,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
I need a.
Yes, David.
It's on.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You got it?
It's on the TV.
Oh, nice purple. So, open food chain. And of course, blockchain is mainly or by and large implemented in finance. Very interesting, but in the end it all is about the food. So we have an implementation in food, and the proposition is that we all want to have interoperable transparency. My name is Marika, and we implement this with the company that's called the Nufor. And we come from food, so we don't come from blockchain per se, as I think nobody really comes. But when blockchain matured in finance, we saw it would really address the issues that we're facing in food on a daily basis. And first of all, the biggest clients or the biggest drivers behind the blockchain application in food is us as consumers. Because you think you know what you eat, but you have no idea. 1/3 of olive oil everywhere globally is not olive oil. And that's just one example. That's an example that's well researched. But a lot of things that you put in your body is actually not what you think that you're putting in your body. So driver number 1 are consumers. Driver number 2, and that is actually our key driver, is that businesses need it. As in any supply chain, it is very difficult to know where stuff comes from and where it is going. So the drive for transparency is not only one in food, but it's one in supply chains at large. And what we do see, so we work with brands like Heinz, like Ahold Delhaize, a big retailer, and they all have massive budgets for brand protection. And in a way, brand protection is really sort of covering up the bad stuff that we don't want to see and they don't want us to know about. So this is a normal food supply chain where there's the farm on that side and there's us as consumers on the other side. Currently, it's a very vague, blurred, siloed, non-connected data infrastructure. So it's not really an infrastructure. And with blockchain, we can create an infrastructure. And this is what we are currently building. So I think most of you know blockchain, so I don't need to really elaborate on this picture. But we're working towards a shared infrastructure. We're implementing this in 3 sectors: the juice industry, which is a massive industry, but an even bigger industry is the fish industry, as in the Dutch don't eat fish by and large, but the rest of the world does. And fish is actually number 1 protein source. And the third one is soy. Soy is something that you might know of vegetarians or people who like to eat a lot of plants. But soy is actually by and large going into meat. So soy is the feed for animals, the animals that we eat. In 80% of the produce in whatever supermarket you can find soy. And it is plant protein number 1. So we're implementing open food chain in these 3 supply chains. And of course, we have for you something to scan and have a look at how it looks from a consumer point of view. So if you scan this with your phone and you enter the best before date and a unique identifier, does that work on an interesting angle? Then you will see a demo of the product that is merely or just a consumer interface. If it's light enough. Yeah. So there's the best before date 2020-05-16. So 05-16, and a unique identifier for 2. And that is the example of open food chain. Now, it is first of all an interoperable blockchain, and luckily you know more about how interoperable that is because we're using Komodo than most of our clients. It is industry owned, so we developed this open source, and we really are, we're keen to invite the Komodo community to help us build this faster and better. and definitely bigger. And for the users, it really generates much more efficient finance in supply chains and much more sufficient governance. And the governance is really about so many different players in an agri-food system that need to communicate and share data. 70% to 80% of all the food in the world that we eat is produced by smallholders. And smallholders are defined as farmers who have less than 2 acres of land, which is hyper small. So that was the sort of more the business side of it. Then now it gets interesting, I think, for most of you. This is the logic, business logic of what the application does. So we connect batches with whatever sort of proof. And in the case that you saw on your phone, on the Juicy Chain implementation, we connect batches with certificates. And certificates, they come from, certificates are applied on anything, right, on food safety, but in our case, it's about sustainability. And by connecting the batches with whatever trait, whatever proof you have, you really create a very rich product passport that is supposed to be more valuable for end consumers. You wanna? I'm just explaining that this is the matching of batches and claims.
Oh yes, super.
Maybe this is then the even more juicy stuff. The architecture. Bart?
Yes. As you can see, all participants in the network, they have their own cluster because it has to be their own cluster because then it's trusted when you transmit data onto the blockchain. So this is actually what they do. The data comes in from an ERP system and it gets processed on their node and then transformed into transactions on the blockchain, and they represent then a badge or any kind of claim. And we have the key value functionality of Komodo. We integrated that as a separate blockchain which acts like a kind of decentralized address book. So you can look up, okay, I have this wallet, what name goes with that wallet? And we use the KV for that. And in the future, of course, we want to use the NSPV for instance, lab results being sent to the network and connected to a certain batch. So you can imagine that in a laboratory, someone is doing a test and then signs off the test like, okay, these are the results, connects it to the batch directly with an NSPV client on the mobile. So this is basically the setup. As you see, we have a green one and a blue one because this one is slightly different. It's run by the foundation of a specific industry. And the foundation typically also has a web interface for instance, for a consumer to actually look up the specific code of a product. And then they have a nice website to view all the information that comes from the blockchain is presented there. And as of course, that is again like a trusted a website is a trusted system. You have to trust the guy building and hosting the website. So this is all open source. And for instance, an NGO like Greenpeace can just download, for instance, this part as well. And they can run a node in the network, and they can, if they want to, they can build their own web interface or host their own web interface and inspect all the code that's there and verify that it's actually correct what the actors in the network are stating. So that's where we are now, and yes, there's lot more plans that we have.
So the last thing that we want to share, so the reason why this is attractive for the agri-food businesses is, first of all, it is interoperable. They are currently calling, so they are still implementing ERP systems for the first time. Agri-food, by and large, is the least digitized sector or industry of them all. And most of them are sort of starting ERP systems at this very moment. And they're referring to it as an open heart surgery. So, yeah, I mean, the interoperability part of the tech that we're building is key, number one. The second one is back to the smallholders. So there are many players. There are no other industries that are as complex as food is, because there's so many players and so many small players and so many disconnected players. We are developing something that we're calling autonomous onboarding, where any party, any entity should be able to join on its own account, without any funding, without any external party. And last, and that is definitely something that we think is key to our success, is that we have no transaction fee, we have no gas fee. And a lot of the Hyperledger, with a lot of the tech that is used in agri-food, they have, of course, a fee system, a tax system. And the moment they start to pump up the volumes, the bills are getting in, they're getting too high, and they stop the digitization trajectories. So the fact that we have no fee is a good asset for widespread of open food chain. And we have the costs very transparent and very fixed in terms of technological maintenance. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to pivot the global food supply chain, or the global food system, as you like it. And one thing is that we want it as consumers. The second is, of course, that business really needs to improve their way of working. But in the end, also the planet, if we continue the way how we are consuming food, the planet will be able to give us the food that we need. And we need help on this. So I think that's the call to action, and that's why we're here to discuss this with you and see how we can, get you more involved.
And you said that you needed help with this, basically. What is the kind of help that we're looking at? Is it basically scaling? Do you need to involve people in the industry? Do you need use cases? Do you need consumers? Do you need technologists?
Yeah, we need all. We need all of that. So we are about 20. We started 4 years ago, and we are now 20 people who are working on this. We need more people who can really look at the architecture. So when, we really need to be robust and able to deal with large volumes. And we are now, 20 people who are looking at it, and the more people, the robuster the architecture will get.
And in the architecture, what's the main problem? Is it the scaling right now, for example? Because you said you have like a fixed maintenance cost, but basically few transactions. So then I can imagine that maybe for some clients, basically, too expensive, maybe they have more time for it and it's not anymore financially feasible. Is that the issue, or is it?
No, I think it's stability. It is. I'm looking at Barcelona. It's Bar is working on architecture.
Yeah, well, we are now basically one Scrum team that is looking at all the parts that you see here. So it's all the disciplines combined, like people from interface, people from blockchain, and we need to grow that into multiple Scrum teams and have a faster pace. Also because we want to have more industries on board, and they will all have specific needs. And for instance, we want to adjust the Block Explorer to be able to show key value information. We want to implement NSPV in a way, and that's too much for one Scrum team.
Yeah.
So we need to expand on that.
And basically, I mean, in terms of competition, we want to outcompete VChain, and the Cargills, Covantis, yeah.
Which is based on Ethereum Core.
Yeah. So at this very moment, the agri-food system, because I mean, the beauty is that they're just starting to really take digitization seriously. Also thanks to COVID-19. And we want to use that window, that opportunity, to really get something that is truly decentralized, rather than something that is sort of vaguely decentralized.
Yeah.
And we stay really close to the vision of Komodo and how it's built in a multi-chain environment, being really interoperable, and sticking to the base level of blockchain technology. So we are interoperable as well, and we can actually benefit from all the effort that is done at Komodo team, and that's actually also something that speeds us up very much. Yeah.
And we already work with fishery. I'm just asking because my wife is writing a proposal about blockchain and fishery.
Really? Da, 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 da. I had like 3 meetings about fishing today.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So that's yeah, definitely, yeah. So fish is one of the fish is one of 3. Fish, chips, and soy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes.
Okay.
Keen to get your wife on board.
Yeah.
We have a question from the internet, from Oink, you might know him. He says, with no fees and autonomous onboarding, how do you protect the chain from bad actors filling up blocks with useless transactions? So that's a nice one, I think, for me to answer. Yes, so we have a juice chain, we have a fish chain, and we have soy chain, and of course they do use the native coin to send the transactions, right? And to actually fill it up with sensible data. But it's proof of stake, and the coins are pre-mined, and you have to have open food chain tokens or coins, and you have to lock them a certain amount, and then you get access to the coins to use on the chain, like juicy chain or fish chain or any other chain. So basically, yes, anyone can download a node and participate in the network, see everything that's happening, but if you want to spam the network, you would still need to have coins, and that would take this route because there's no block reward or anything. So Anka, I hope that answers your question, and if, of course, this is also still a thing that is in development for a large part, so any feedback or help on that part is appreciated.
Yeah.
Yes, we have time for one more question, so that's good. So, yeah, then in 3 minutes, let's stop, and then we have a 5-minute break before we have the next presentation.
Okay, my question is that what my wife, she just wrote a paper about basically comparing all the blockchain usages in, fishery, and what you see is that very little truly decentralized projects around. So most basically decentralized blockchains, basically for mostly marketing purposes. But what you mostly are lacking is transfer of value. So basically not using this to create either a coin of their own to transfer value to fishers, for example, or to producers. Is that possible with this coin? Can you have your own native token that represents some form of value, or can you use Komodo as a transfer of value? That, for example, if I would buy a fish and I find it very delicious and I see a nice photo of the fish with then I can tip it. Yeah. Is it possible technologically? Because it's something that's missing in this space.
Yes, of course. The blockchain technology is very inviting technology for transactions like that. So in either direction, it's not something that we have implemented yet. Yeah. So we are focused now on the batches and how they are traced back to the origin and to all the claims attached to that. Yeah. But I can imagine, especially with the focus that is now on tokenization and blockchain technology in Komodo, with the Tokkel project, I especially think that's a possibility to use, and I think Marieke is very much aware of all the nice ideas.
So there's a lot of sort of public interest in tipping, being able to tip the farmer, which is great and it reconnects consumers to producers. Yeah. However, the biggest value added is really to get the normal finance going. Yeah. A lot of finance is stuck in supply chains, and definitely in food supply chains. Yeah. So by the time you eat your apple, the farmer gets paid, and it should be by the time it's off the farm. And so to make that more liquid is something that is of a higher priority. Yeah. And also something that people don't, if you start sort of tipping farmers, it becomes a very dodgy area, because you start tipping farmers who, have green eyes rather than blue eyes or, you know.
It is, but it's from a marketing perspective,
Yeah.
customer intimacy
It's
is very,
happening,
very important.
yeah, it's happening
So it
already.
adds value
Yeah.
to the product in the end.
Yeah.
So.
So you have Moyi Coffee,
Yeah.
it's a
I know,
coffee brand,
yeah.
that they do this. And there are a few others that are doing this.
Okay, great.
Yeah, but it's nice, and it's sort of, you know, it has a high cuddle factor.
Yeah.
But it's not changing the system.
No, I know. I think, and then we also, for example, help with smart systems. So basically, like smart logistics, self-optimizing,
Yeah.
because blockchain is very well suited for that.
Yeah, definitely.
Also possible.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And sensors, where you want to have temperature checks and quality checks.
Exactly, and then operators decide themselves
Yeah.
where to go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So anybody who has good questions and good suggestions, please join the team.
Yeah. You can save your question, Casper, for later.
All right.
And we have a small break now, and then we go into the stream with Smartfi, with the CEO of Smartfi,
Aaron Tilton.
Aaron Tilton. Yes, Aaron Tilton.
Cool.
So looking forward to that,
Thank you.
and thank you, Marieke.
Je wil het stream even muten of heb je hem helemaal uitgezet?
Van waar?
In de camera naar de grond.
Het is ook heel ding. Het is ook heel ding.
Muted.
Oh, we are muted. Who did that? I did that. Oh.
Hey, Aaron, can you hear us?
I can.
Awesome. So we're continuing our live stream here in The Hague Tech, together with the Blockbar and Komodo. And I couldn't be more happy to present Aaron Tilton from Smartfi. It's a new collaboration, actually ongoing friendship for 3 years, together with the Smartfi. Aaron, the stage is yours, and let's hear some good news about Smartfi. How did it all started?
Great. Let me, I'm going to share a slide deck here, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Let me get this up and running. And what we'll do is, I guess somebody will have to keep me on track here for time.
You're good, you're good. If what, I'll say the safe word, a banana or something.
Banana, the secret password.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming it's about 15 minutes of presentation and about 15 minutes of question, is that correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to try to condense this. It's a fairly complex topic where with Smartfi, obviously we have an open lending platform that has decentralized cryptocurrency monetary policy, much like you would see with a central bank, but without the central bank characteristics. It relies on decentralization. Are you guys seeing my slide deck there?
Not at the moment. We do see your camera.
Yes.
Oh, there we go, sorry.
Yes, we got it.
All right, great. There we go. And so with this implementation of the technology that Komodo has played a big part in with our blockchain programming, part of which there are a lot of technology innovations we'll talk about, some protocols and algorithms that we innovated that Komodo has brought to life for us. There are several innovations around that provide benefits that we'll talk about. But primarily, the structure around what we're doing is that society in general, before it has significant user adoption or broader user adoption, society will demand from policymakers and regulators that the technology solve the problems that they encounter daily. And if technology developers do not take seriously the implications of that, meeting those needs for designs of technology, society's sheriffs, as we call them, they will either take over the technology or eliminate it altogether. It's always a significant risk when a new innovation is it becomes at the forefront of public debate. So let me just give you quickly my background. I'm a former Utah State House member. So I was appointed to this seat by the governor when it was prematurely vacated. I won't tell you the crazy story behind that. Mm-hmm. So I kind of like to say I'm a recovering politician. I was elected in 2004 to that seat and then re-elected in 2006 and served 5 years there. I served on the House Public Utilities and Technology Committee as the vice chair, and then the House Retirement and Independent Entities Committee as the vice chair there as well. So a lot of the experience I have in public service is very relatable to blockchain technology development, the sources of the commodities that actually run those blockchains, and electricity and technology with silicon chip development. Also, the company Blue Castle, which is the the parent corporation to Smartfi has been around for about 14 years. And our first project is developing a new nuclear power plant in Utah. And then we got involved that's how we basically got involved in blockchain. We started getting a lot of calls from these crazy cryptocurrency miners that wanted all this power to mine Bitcoin. And I have a little bit of a background in technology. About 20 years ago, I was the director of sales and marketing for a company that built interactive voice response for chain store pharmacies. And we built an ASIC piece of hardware and a software that enabled chain store pharmacies to receive touch-tone dialing. It was a long time ago to iterate an automated response to order a new prescription at the pharmacy. So long time ago, I had a little bit of a technology background, did that for 7 or 8 years, and then we started the energy business. So that's a little bit of my background. I'm going to try to be a little quicker. I know we haven't got a lot of time, but I just want to make this point that in society, some of the sheriffs are our own making, like the technology that we develop. We have rules, protocols, algorithms around those that we have to comply with. And that community that is used to that, they're used to that process. And so we have sheriffs of our own making, but then we have other sheriffs that are thrust upon us. And so during this process, we all have a day of reckoning to society, work with technology, and when we're using cryptocurrencies, we're actually hiring as sheriff to protect our property. As such, Komodo is helping to develop our sheriff, so to speak, on our ecosystem. And as such, that sheriff is going to have varying degrees of control on our assets and our property. And if we're not careful, both the sheriffs that are thrusted upon us and the sheriffs of society and the sheriffs of technology, they can become their own tyranny if we let them. So I'm going to go through some of these slides fairly quickly again because we have a constraint on the time. But a couple of key points is that we don't want to confuse that early commercial success is not the same as societal acceptance. And a lot of times technology developers confuse the two. Also, long-term success requires this moral acceptance from society. And broader user adoption is not the same as decentralization. It can also turn into mob rule in its own form of tyranny. So I won't bore you with some of these other slides here, but the technology has got to have superior equality and moral acceptance in 3 areas. Broadly from society, 1, governance has to solve problems. Value fundamentals, you can't have massive bear market volatility and expect society to live by that volatility. They won't accept it. And then payment systems, they have to incorporate UI designs that make broader adoption effective. And we're going to talk just a few quickly issues about what has happened and some of the core design problems of cryptocurrencies and DeFi and other blockchains in general. One, there's a serious lack of fundamentals. And when you're framing a debate to talk to a regulator or a constituency of the users who are going to use this, the debate of cryptocurrencies and blockchains still broadly is seen as a kind of a get-rich-quick kind of scenario that is not widely accepted or morally acceptable in society today. They see it as somebody kind of taking assets or taking advantage of other people based on their knowledge of technology. Now, that fundamental, I know for a lot of innovators, including us around the technology, Komodo and other blockchain sectors of the industry, they're so deep into what they're doing, they don't see that. But when you talk to the broader economy and policymakers, that's still what they see. That's their perception. So that's a problem that we have to overcome as a society and as a community of technology developers. So who are the natural constituency currently with cryptocurrencies? It's still widely seen and executed as trading and speculation. Again, not a very good use case because policymakers will look at that as basically risk or, again, kind of get rich quick kind of scenarios. So the third one is unnecessary bear market volatility. This creates kind of victims and winners that policymakers will look to exploit to impose overly broad regulations. This has been my experience from several years of creating laws and working with regulators in different areas, including technology, utilities, and retirement and investment structures. So the other problem with blockchain currently is that there is no solution currently for injustices or errors. We see this all the time with our customers, with our experience with blockchain, that it's almost impossible to correct theft, fraud, or errors on the blockchain. Blockchain still requires perfection of its users, which it should not. I'll give you an example that's widely known. It's estimated that 20% of all Bitcoin is locked on chain because people have lost their passwords to their private keys. So that's just not acceptable in kind of the regular society. If somebody tells you, hey, you can come use our bank, but it's possible that you're going to lose 20% of all your assets because your password can't be reset. Nobody would use that bank, right? And that's kind of the structure of that payment system. So the fifth one is unnecessary taxes or fees. One of the ironies of cryptocurrencies is that the designers, the early core designers of the technology, adopted two of the most terrible features from banks and government tyranny, one of which is transaction fees. Taxes, basically to use your own property. And for the ethos around cryptocurrencies, which is freedom and use of property without government tyranny or banking tyranny, they inadvertently used one of the worst features, which is a fee, a transaction fee. So that is embedded in virtually every blockchain payment system that we're aware of today. And I think everybody knows that. You can see what happened last year and several times during the history of cryptocurrencies when the transaction throughput on the blockchain is very high, the fees are exorbitant. And it makes other people's property unusable, essentially, because the tax they will incur to move it from one person to another, so it effectively makes it unusable. And so they've lost their freedom to use their property. So the second one is socialized block rewards. And this is, again, a very strange irony that they would adopt this solution. But no matter how much notional value is on the network, the same reward is split among a variety of network operators. No matter how many operators are there or how few there are, they give out the same reward. That's socialism. And a lot of our customers in the beginning of our process and our entrance into the market were essentially cryptocurrency miners in a variety of locations, but primarily in China. And we started recognizing some of the core problems of that design. In fact, it's one of the reasons we came into existence as a company, is that we started lending them liquidity without them having to sell their cryptocurrency. So we did cryptocurrency collateralized loans so that they could pay for their O&M costs of mining, their electricity, to fund new chip designs, basically vertically integrate their O&M in their space vertically with a liquidity provider. And it solved some of those problems that they have, but it didn't solve the problems of the core designs in the blockchain. So that's where we came in with Komodo, our process and our project. I'm going to go through a couple of slides quickly here. I won't talk a little bit about framing the debate, but just realize that when you're engaging with policymakers, you have to use the core designs of your technology and show how it has benefits for a policymaker's constituency so that they, one, either ignore you, because that's in politics, being ignored is almost as great of a win as having somebody agree with you. If they don't engage in actively regulating or designing legislation to control you, it's almost as good as getting them to agree with you if they ignore you. So there are a couple of ways that you can go through this process, but you can't be ignored forever. And we're seeing that now in the United States, right? One of the other issues with not adopting benefit, what I would call it, core technology designs around benefits is that your technology, one of two things will happen. Like I said, you'll either be ignored until they decide that they don't like you anymore and they'll eliminate you like China did with mining, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin mining, and cryptocurrency mining in general in China, or they will craft overly broad regulations that don't meet the needs of society or your technology, and they'll get rid of you that way. So again, I'm not going to go through this slide in detail, but the comparison is you become extinct. You'll become a dodo bird if your technology core designs are not built around the benefits of society. So here's where we get to Smartfi's benefits and how we frame the debate with policymakers as we begin our trip down this journey of cryptocurrencies and our innovations around our algorithms, our lending. We engage regulators and policymakers both at the federal level and at the local and state level to explain to them what we were doing and how we were different and how our core designs met society's needs. The first one is that our core business was not around trading or providing leverage, which you see a lot of DeFi projects are still around trading and just providing leverage or liquidity to go out and engage in the forward contract markets for cryptocurrency trading. Our core constituents were actually businesses looking to reinvest. They create jobs. They create innovation and stimulate the security of the network and all of these other things that policymakers really identify with when they realize that you're just not kind of a get-rich-quick kind of proposition, that you have a real value story and you have natural constituents that benefit from our project, like the loans. They're all ears. They love that, right? Because that ties you back to voting and frankly to a success story that they themselves would like to claim. They want to be looked at as having, being in touch with some innovative technology that's beneficial to society. So they'll start to tout you as something that they had something to do with, even though maybe they didn't. But if they support you, then they can say that they had nothing to do with your success, which is true, but it is basically just latching on to your success and claiming it as their own. And we're free to have them, we're great. That's great to have them do that, right? The second is safety first. Most people recognize that cryptocurrencies have risk, which is one of the reasons a lot of them don't engage in it. But they will engage in your product, which again ties them back to a natural constituent. They can see that there's a way to be safe first and then speculate at different risk tolerance. So with Smartfi, we were able to engineer 100% buyback guarantee in our cryptocurrency. If you buy under certain circumstances, one of which is it has to be bought on our what's called smart cycle. We'll talk about that in a minute. But think of, is there any other blockchain that has a speculative cryptocurrency that has a 100% buyback guarantee that if you don't like our cryptocurrency within a year or after a year, you could bring it back to us and we'll give you exactly the money that you bought it with. Nobody does that. So think of the difference in approach when we're talking to federal or state regulators when we can explain to them this buyback guarantee. Immediately the story and their perception of us as a company changes. They no longer look at it as a risk that they have to figure out how to mitigate for somebody in their state or under their regulatory construct that might have risk with us. So the other part is a fundamental value creation. One of the big risks is bear market volatility. And because of the way that we've designed our core construct around the value creation of what we do, our cryptocurrency and our project in general resists unnecessary bear market volatility. Now, there is necessary bear market volatility if the market gets too crazy running one way or the other. Bear market volatility to kind of bring it back, or just a natural correction is really what you might call it, is healthy and good. But when cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin runs to 65,000 under no basic fundamental, just pure speculation, and then drops back down to 29 or 28,000 within a few weeks. Most people in society see that as unsustainable, unusable, and they don't see the benefit to it unless they're riding the wave up and then dumping it on somebody else, which creates a victim. So, and we'll talk about our process resists that bear market volatility. Number 4, when we go back to the analogy of sheriffs, Komodo is working on with us over the next 6 to 8 months to implement the sheriff node, which is actually the core design of that came from some legislation that I passed in the House. It was actually vetoed by the governor at the time, but we passed it in the House and the Senate, and it basically uses the same core concept of putting something at risk. So using the same concept of cryptocurrency and mining, where you put something at risk, and if you put something at risk, then you get to have certain access to what is going to be a valid transaction on the blockchain or in the block. So in this structure, a sheriff node, let's say you are the victim of fraud or theft. Somebody took something from you, or there was an error. Maybe it was just an error, like you lost your keys or your password or your passphrases to your private key, or somebody stole something. You should be able to put up a bond or something of value that the rest of the blockchain recognizes as something at stake, and allow other people to engage in a process to adjudicate the reversal of that transaction on the blockchain. It may take time, it may take months, and it may involve somebody else being a mediator, right? Which is really what miners do. The concept that blockchain and with cryptocurrencies and like Bitcoin or Ethereum or anybody that has mining or staking, that there's no third party involved in the transaction is erroneous. Really what blockchain did is it created another third party in the place of a bank. But what it did is it stripped out some of these features that a bank does. Banks are not all terrible, right? They have certain things about them. When governments play favorites and they do social engineering and they have basically pseudo-capitalism, those are terrible features, but that's not really have much to do with the core designs of a bank. But a third party in a transaction is actually not all bad, because they can correct fraud and theft and errors. So if you put something at risk at this sheriff node, you can have a third party adjudicate that transaction and then correct that transaction if it was deemed to have somebody fraudulently. For example, if you have a fraud or a theft occurred, what's the likelihood that that person who committed that fraud or theft will show up to dispute that transaction in a public place where they could be arrested? It's virtually completely unlikely that they will. So if somebody else puts up a bond that represents a substantial amount of money, that if they engage somebody else in a dispute and that person shows up and they can demonstrate that that transaction was actually correct, they have a contract or they have some other way to demonstrate that that transaction was correct, they can then take the bond that the other person posted as compensation for wasting their time and making them show up to adjudicate this transaction. But if it's really theft, that person's never going to show up, so that the node operator can then reverse that transaction, and that the person who was either defrauded or was the victim of theft or an error can get their cryptocurrency back. So with that, I'm going to stop, and maybe you can tell me if I have more time left. I know I want to make sure we have some question and answer period.
You have as much time as you want. I mean, 10 minutes still, something like that. If you want to continue, please do, and otherwise we can most definitely go into questions from the participants here.
Okay, I'm going to just go through a couple other benefits that we've been developing with Komodo and their technology team and our team. And you know what's been great about the partnership with Komodo? We have a lot of background in the financial markets. You know, with our past experience in, we used to own an oil and gas pipeline. We're building nuclear power plants, and all of this is based around derivatives around the electric or energy markets. But when we would bring up these concepts and say, okay, we understand blockchain from a high level. Can you implement these structures? We would create an algorithm, we'd do the math for them, and they would say, great, let me look at this. They would bring up other blockchains or other technologies, and we would innovate over and over and over around these concepts until we came up with a solution that both met society's demands and the technological barriers, or sometimes we break down those barriers with technology. So it's been a great partnership. And it was not something we entered into lightly with Komodo. We spent about 2 years researching Komodo, watching what happened with their technology that they developed, and then also spent about probably 6 months negotiating contracts and the details around how we would execute this, really making sure that they could do what we asked them to do. And this is probably another lesson, is that don't rush to market with your technology. I know everybody's concerned with the speed of what, how technological markets typically move, but there is virtue in letting the innovation take a natural course. One of those things is you actually can watch other people make mistakes where their technology doesn't benefit society, and you can adapt to those. You can watch what happens with regulation. You know, so that I would kind of caution people against that. And I think Komodo probably, you know, they're pounding their head against the wall sometimes because of how we didn't move rapidly, but we wanted to make sure that our innovations and our benefits that we looked at solved real problems. And we're grateful that they were patient with us. And I think there were times where they had to be patient, and we had to be patient with them as well, because we would give them ideas that there was no real immediately, you know, a technological design that was immediately available. So we would have to show them the design of how it worked either in the electric markets, the oil and gas markets, the financial markets, or in regulations, or these kind of things. So it's been a great partnership. But let me move on again to some of these other benefits that the core designs of our technology implement. The other one is that we came up with a stable coin that has no transaction fees, and we have one limitation with our speculative coin. But after the first of next year, our speculative coin will be able to get rid of the transaction fees on that blockchain as well. So we have to do a complete fork of another technology and a bunch of other things we have to implement that take a much longer time. But because of the core economic design of our blockchain and the core design, some of which Komodo adopted and then adapted to our technology and our blockchain, we were able to eliminate transaction fees on our stablecoin. So just like when you use cash somewhere, somebody doesn't say, great, I'll take your $10, but for using, for this transaction, we're going to charge you 2% to 3% of your $10 just for the privilege of using those $10 that you owned already. That's a terrible design, right? That's a tax on actually your net worth. So we were able to eliminate that. So SFUSD will not have any transaction fees as a stablecoin, which when you think about the utility of that, if I'm a merchant, I can, if I can get other users to adopt this technology, I can eliminate transaction fees, which the merchant always charges, right? It's the dirty little secret about policies and transaction fees. People go, oh gosh, there's a transaction fee, but I don't know about it because I never get charged it. Well, the merchant never pays fees. He only raises his prices to recover it, which you don't see. And then he pays that to Visa or MasterCard or to wherever it goes, right? It's a, in policy, we always recognize that businesses never pay taxes. They only collect them from their users or from their customers. That is a fact that's never going to change, and it's a fraud that is committed on society in general, where the price of their goods and services is always marked up because of the tax collection that governments impose upon businesses. And businesses just pass those taxes on. They do not eat those taxes. They pass them on to you. So that's why we thought that fees and transaction fees were a terrible technology adoption from blockchain transactions. So the second is the design of our speculative coin. When you buy our coin, it is indexed to the lending platform so that the current amount of loans that we have in our system are indexed to the price of the coin, so that in the process of the loan portfolio increasing, the coin actually increases in the primary market, the price of the coin in the primary market. So the wealth that normally would accrue to a bank or a lender actually accrues, or is the coin holders are the beneficiary of that by creating an index on our loan portfolio. So you actually, when you own this coin, it's better than owning part of a bank. So it uses what's called a loanable funds model in the private banking world, where banks or lenders, their balance sheet increases when they make loans, and with currencies and the way that the markets work and central banks work and all of these things, those lenders actually get to lever their balance sheet against the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve and buy leverage down. In the case of the United States Federal Reserve, that leverage is 10 to 1. So it's really similar to what cryptocurrencies do in their process, but it has no fundamental value creation or index. It's based on total speculation. But when you change that speculative asset to a hedge, again, I'm maybe getting a little jargony with the financial discussion, so you can ask me questions about it later. But when you start your coin with a exactly correlated hedge, which in the form of an index, the value that accrues to the coin instead of a bank accrues to the coin holder. Also, this coin holder has the ability to vote on the cryptocurrency monetary policy. So you have the ability to vote on either increasing or decreasing the interest rates, which would have a natural movement on the loan portfolio. If you decrease the interest rates and the cost of your capital, your loan portfolio should increase, which also increases the price of the coin. If you want to drop the price of the coin for whatever reason, you can vote the other way to contract the market. So you take an innovation from a central bank that does have very good value and benefits to the society as a whole, strip out the other terrible parts where it's connected to the spending of a government, and now you have a cryptocurrency monetary policy that can help you resist bear market volatility, but also push up the value of the coin based on benefiting the natural constituencies by issuing more loans. Right? So as the market overall is growing, if the economy and the GDP is growing, currencies have to match that growth. That's why we got away from the gold standard, not that the backing was bad, but that it created wars and economic warfare between countries because you couldn't dig gold out of the ground fast enough to expand with the natural rate of the economy. Right? So there are a lot of these things that we reverse engineered from the experience of the world, economics, banks, and monetary policy that had very good value, but the most terrible feature of all of those things is it was tied to a government that would abuse that. They would print unnecessarily money. They would go to war against other countries to take their gold so they could back their currency. They could do all these things. Since we're not a government, we're not tied to those crazy abusive structures. Our motivations are aligned exactly with the currencies that we create. So when you look at the third to last bullet, Smartfi only makes a profit when token holders' profits increase. The business model is virtuous. We're not a government. We don't need to print money unnecessarily to devalue the currency to pay for our debt. All those stupid things that they do that basically end up making the currency holders, punishing them for the government's abuses. Also, we have improved energy efficiency. We have multi-purpose hash rate through use of merge mining and DPoW, which is technology that Komodo innovated around securing blockchains without the need to actually build large-scale hash rate. You can repurpose it, and then when you use merge mining, that allows us to create a structure where we incent the miners through portions of the interest that we collect from the loans, so that they don't charge transaction fees. That's how we got rid of the transaction fees, but also incented miners to mine the network. So then kind of the last part we're talking about, the smart DEX as an interoperable trading structure. And the reason this was what brought us to Komodo in the first place, because we recognized that the natural transaction that we did for liquidity for our loans, which in the derivatives market is called a swap, we recognized that they had innovated technology around a swap, an atomic swap, which is very similar, that was a interoperable blockchain transaction, so they could trade Ethereum for Bitcoin, or a stable coin for whatever, just basically any other blockchain. You could trade those native tokens across blockchains and have the transaction accrue inside a non-custodial wallet. Well, that's really similar to what we're doing with hedge funds and our other liquidity partners when we were doing the lending process for cryptocurrency collateralized loans. That was the thing that brought us to these guys in the first place, to Komodo. So we look at the Smart DEX, which is a forked version of Komodo's Atomic DEX technology, as our open lending and open derivatives platform to expand into the future. So before we got on this call, I was just having a conversation with the organizer about what they're doing with the ag business. And the CME, which is an exchange here in the United States where most people farmers and large agricultural businesses trade their corn or their soybeans or their pork bellies or oranges or whatever. With that DEX, we can basically innovate a process through a contract called an ISDA. We can innovate a process where peer-to-peer trading of those agricultural products can take place without a centralized third-party clearer. Or let me say this, the third-party clearer in that transaction will be a peer-to-peer network on the Smart DEX blockchain and the peer-to-peer node network that Komodo has innovated. I think there's 64 nodes, but those same node operators will then be able to adapt the technology, build a clearing structure, and then clear these transactions with a little bit of innovation and implementation around a smart contract that's built around a current contract that's used in other markets called an ISDA. So then there's obviously a lot of work to be done and programming to be done, but the core technology in the swap, in the atomic swap, allows us to innovate some of these other market benefits. Going back again, that this will serve the broader public. The technology as a whole will live up to its potential. And that's what we saw when we saw cryptocurrencies, that there's enormous potential, but the technology needed some adjustments. The approaches to the financial structure, instead of having risk first in the form of volatility, if you could implement safety and a hedge first, then you could engage in the appropriate amount of risk. So with that, I'm going to stop. I'm probably boring you guys to tears and with some of the jargony stuff, but we're excited about it, obviously, as you can tell. And the launch of the Smartfi platform in beta has been great. We've got a few more things to work out, but right now it's in beta, and the token launch will be happening here shortly, within days. And we've done a lot already. So we've already done, in our previous version of PowerBlock, about $1 billion in transactions and loans. So we're really excited to be launching the platform in its next iterated version in conjunction with Komodo. And with that, I'll be open to questions.
Thank you, Aaron. As you hear, everybody's sitting silently, listening to everything what you say. And before we go to the questions from the people, I just wanted to give you a round of applause for this insightful presentation about Smartfi.
Thank you.
And we can start with the questions. I've seen you were first. If you can come a bit closer to the microphone.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me congratulate on a very interesting project, because I think there's very few projects, in the cryptocurrency space that try to take historic lessons about economy, what's good and wrong, to go for the higher moral road, basically, and create a project such as this. But when I see all the benefits that you're listing, I also see a lot of risk, basically, because if you look at traditional crypto projects, there's many reasons why they made design decisions, such as having transaction fees, for example. So maybe we can go back to that slide, to the the benefits of Smartfi.
Yep, give me 1 second here. It just stops sharing it. Oh, sure, good.
Yeah, sorry, I stopped earlier. So when I look at this, I see it like one is very idealistic and great, because it can give a lot of benefits to everybody.
Which slide did you want me to go back to?
The last
Sorry.
one, like where you list all the benefits, like for example this one. But I also see like a lot of potential risks. For example, buyback guarantee. How can you prevent like having a bank run? Because this is something that central banks have the risk of running, or normal banking systems. And if you provide it within a project, you also have this risk. And there's a few other ones. For example, no transaction fees. In projects that I've been involved in, such as Grin, we also had these discussions, and we always ended up that we needed transaction fees, because otherwise somebody can just simply attack the blockchain, overload it with transactions, and basically block the good users from benefiting from the system. So,
let me interrupt you really quick, because I'm not hearing the clarity on my end for the audio is not really good.
Sorry.
You talked about central bank risk, and then mining transaction fees.
Yes, so I see a few risks. So I need like that you can get a bank run, because you are giving this guarantee of a money back, buyback basically. So let's start with that one. Is there a way that you can prevent that from happening? Because I get the idea, I think it's good, but it also indeed introduces risks. Basically, you get a system that can implode. Or am I missing something?
Again, the reason that we have this is because the core economic design behind what we do does not involve leverage. Okay? So what happens is this, is that let's say in the smart cycle process, and I'll go to there's another slide here. Okay, so you can see the chart on the right-hand side. This is would be a sample of what we call the smart cycle. Okay, and in the smart cycle, there's another slide we can quickly. Again, I'm going to try to answer this question. It's not a super simple answer, but it is a simple concept, right? The smart cycle only raises capital when there's loan demand. And when you have a loan for a lender, that's actually an asset. For the borrower, it's a liability, right? So when you, in the first step, you have a loan. So we sell in our smart cycle, which is basically like a continuous token sale, like a central bank recycles currency through the economy. And we do kind of the same thing, but a little different. So you have let's just take the bottom part of that token, right? The cycle there, that table. In our smart cycle price, we sell the token at $15.55. So we'll sell 100,000 Smartfi tokens, and because the loan demand is at $99,757,000 and some change, that basis is then established in the sale of those tokens, right? And as with the loan demand increases, we sell more tokens, but at a higher price, and continually go up and up and up and up and up. So now the price of the token is moving up along with the loan demand. Well, if the loan demand does not move up, one, we don't sell any more tokens, right? We don't need to. Two, the price in our primary market never changes. Let's assume that maybe we were up here at $109 million, and then somebody paid off their loans, and it dropped us back down to $99 million, right? So we have a $10 million difference, right? So in the secondary market, we don't lock in that trading. That just trades totally on speculation and goes through that process. You will have you can't take your smart cycle coins, right, your token coins, and go to the secondary market, trade it there, and come back and bring it back to us at some point and say, hey, you know what, I don't want these coins anymore. You have to leave your coins on the smart portal if you want the smart buyback guarantee. You can't take it into the secondary market, right? Which means your basis in the coins is established, and if we have a payoff in the loan model, that would correlate. Maybe somebody says, hey, the price maybe went down. It's not where I want it to be. That means I'm sitting on $10 million worth of cash that I can offer the buyback, right? And most likely, the redemption price of $15.57, people are not going to redeem it below that price because they'll end up losing money or their basis in it will not be what they call delta neutral. I don't want to introduce new concepts of trading, but delta neutral is basically a hedged position in a mathematical equation, right? So it basically means if you're delta neutral, it means you're even in your trade or your purchase or your investment. So I'm always sitting on the cash that's needed to do a buyback where the basis of the coin will be delta neutral. Because we don't take this money and build technology with it. I've already spent the millions of dollars that it takes to build this technology. I'm not selling tokens so I can build technology. We sell tokens to meet the liquidity requirements to fund loans.
Yeah.
We're not wasting the capital. That's how we can do a buyback guarantee. That's the basic, simple answer. And if there's ever a reduction in our loan portfolio, we always have the cash available to buy back your token at whatever price you bought it at.
I only partly get it, I have to admit, but basically if everybody at the same time would want to have their refund, would the system work?
Yeah, absolutely, because we only give the refund if you haven't taken your token out of secondary market and sold them there and then bought them back. Or we don't give a refund on the secondary market because we have no idea what you bought your coins for or traded it. You know, that's all the speculative market.
Okay.
If you buy your tokens on the primary market from the smart cycle, right, directly from us, then you can get your buyback guarantee.
Yeah, okay.
At price.
This was information was missing. Basically, it's only on the primary market you can buy it back, and then it's stable because it's just a fixed pool basically. And if you go on the secondary market, the buyback is not there anymore. Then very quickly, the transactions, because you know most crypto systems they do not allow free transactions, and actually I love the idea, but I would expect something like that you have to have some collateral or proof of stake or an upper limit of the amount of transactions, because also otherwise I could buy $1 of your stablecoin cryptocurrency and just spam the network indefinitely. So how do you secure against that? How do you prevent
Are you talking about the no transaction fees?
Yeah, basically, how do you prevent an evil actor from overloading your blocks with unnecessary transactions because you do not have a fee? Because I like the more idea, but I don't know how technologically you can solve this. Do you have an upper limit?
There are two things, right? One of which is you're talking about the necessary hash rate to keep the transactions to the block time, you know, so it's sufficient to process the transaction in time, right? We have 20-second block times on our blockchain. So there are two considerations, one of which I'm going to introduce. It's not part of your question, but I think helps illustrate this part. There is actually a security fee that we rebate back to the customer, back to the whoever engaged in the transaction, because without a transaction fee, then somebody could spam the network.
Exactly.
Right. And so what we do is we do charge the fee, but it is rebated back to your wallet effectively every month or every week, depending on the frequency that we initiate in the process.
So you ask for collateral to have an upper threshold of the amount of transactions you can make. So let's say you use like 1/100th of your capital and put it like in a transaction. So let's say you take 1/100th of your capital and put it in a transaction as collateral. Basically, it would mean you could do a maximum of 100 transactions. So the transaction is fee, but there's an upper limit to the amount of transactions that you can do. And as such, you prevent from spamming the network. If I understand correctly, because you're locking up some fee.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
I only heard about half of what you said. If you may be a little far away from the mic.
Sorry. Yeah, so basically I think I understand what you mean. So basically you have an upper limit. It's not like there's an unlimited amount of transactions with no transaction fee, but there's a maximum amount of transactions throughput in a certain time because you have to lock some money as transaction fee, which is indeed a very good solution in my opinion, because you have both the security and basically what the real economy needs. You need to have basically a zero transaction fee economy. That's how good the economy works.
Yeah, I'm short of saying yes because I didn't hear everything. I'll give you just a quick additional color on that. So how we get around not having enough hash rate is that, think of this as the loan transactions increase on the right-hand side of the table on the decentralized version of the project. There is more interest to pay the miners for more hash rate because we take a portion of the interest rate for the loans to incent the miners to bring their hash rate on the network. And this is an algorithm that we invented basically called the commodity layer protocol. And we don't have time to go into the details of that. You'll be able to find more detail about that in our white paper. But it is a reward algorithm that basically says you auction or bid in your hash rate, and there is a weighting factor that a miner is rewarded if he has the lowest cost hash rate with a 20 to 15% profit margin on top of the cost of his hash rate. So he wins the auction to provide the hash rate and record the blocks on the network. But they are rewarded in a pooled structure already, not a single block reward to a single miner. So everybody contributes their hash rate into the network, but we only pay out, excuse me, on the needed hash rate to keep our block times at 20 seconds. And so therefore we keep the block times stable. All the miners get a reward but it's an auction, so you have to be competitive with the cost of your hash rate to get your 20% margin. Therefore, it's not a socialized mechanism. It is still individual competitive nature, but through an auction. And so everybody shares part of the interest, and the block reward is distributed based on your ability to be more efficient. So we got rid of the socialized mechanism, but we still have the ability to bring as much hash rate in as we need on that basis. So if the hash rate is too low, we actually we separate 5% of that hash rate, or the rewards, to bring on and pay for more hash rate on the network, so it can grow and expand or contract based on the needs of the network, which is driven by the amount of loans that we have on the network. So it has its own expansion and contraction policy based on an auction, so that the incentives are individualized, so it's through market mechanisms, but the overall processing is shared, and it has a percentage of the loan mechanism. So
Thank
hopefully
you.
that makes sense. You can read the white paper.
It really makes sense. I would love to read the white paper. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Thank you for your answer, Aaron. We're getting quite into extensive stream, which is not bad, but I'm going to ask a last question, since I see that the people are quite thirsty at this point. Is there another question? Yeah, please. Join the stage.
Hi, Aaron. Thank you for your presentation, really inspiring, and I'm very excited. But Smartfi is basically, what is the market you are aiming at? Is it business or is it consumer? And I was really wondering, I saw you had a client, InnoSilicon, they're the Chinese guys, and I was really wondering how they can play a role in you finding big markets for this product.
So the market that we are broadening our offering to is virtually anyone. It doesn't really matter what your purpose. If you have cryptocurrency like Bitcoin or Ethereum currently, and we'll bring more on in terms of backing the loans, we will fund anyone for any reason. Doesn't matter. And previously, we acted more like a private bank for high net worth individuals, mostly cryptocurrency mining. And a lot of our big customers were in China because that's where the mining was. But we have funded mining operations in Europe, United States, South and Central America, and essentially anywhere in the world, because there is really no limitation that we'll take the collateral and send dollars or stable coins to anybody. So primarily, the way we look at the breakdown of the market is, if you're borrowing money, you're going to tend to be have a commercial purpose or be a business. But if you're buying the token, we believe that should be mostly the public, right? And so we do have institutional trade parties with the hedge funds and other people that we work with, but the token is available to anyone in the smart cycle price, and there is no advantage to being an institution. It is what they would call a fair launch or a fair token sale. If you're an institution, we don't give you some cheaper rate. And if you're a person, we don't mark it up and make you buy it, at a higher cost.
So if you want to have my Bitcoin, I presume you also are insured?
So we have certain insurances based on the commercial operation, kind of the non-blockchain side of what we do. But with Bitcoin and Ethereum, basically we keep all of that in a delta neutral structure, and that will sit in our wallets. We'll publish the amounts. So for example, we publish our bank account online, what the amount of that is for the stablecoin purposes. That you can see that the stablecoin always can be redeemed for exactly $1. And then for the loans, we'll publish the loans online in terms of the amount for what we've done. But there really isn't any way to insure what we do. We are self-insured because we always have the cash on hand for the redemption.
Thank you for your answer. I see Casper has another 17 questions, but I'll allow him one last one before we close the stream with you. And again, last question, Casper.
Yeah, well, here in Europe, the FAT is again coming from the government. They are coming with extra measures against basically cryptocurrencies. Are you guys also, your platform, will it also look at that kind of customers? So is it for Europeans possible to invest in Smartfi?
Yes. Yep.
That was pretty quick. Aaron, thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your answers. I'll leave you alone now. Just for the last time, round of applause for Aaron Tilton, everybody.
Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. Until the next time.
You bet.
So before we actually close down the stream, I wanted to give a shout out to a very new project that came out, Tokel.io, and that's an NFT project. Komodo is working also with them, collaborating with them, and they have an upcoming IDO which will start 30th August 2021 at 8 p.m. UTC. If anybody needs the thing, you can go to tokel.io/IDO. And it will finish on 15th September 2021, 8 p.m. UTC. Where it will happen on Dex. And what pairs it will be KMD and